The origin story of Atlantis is one of the most famous tales in human history. It's been told and retold in books, movies, TV shows, and even video games. He said that it was an actual place that existed off the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, a place of wisdom and enlightenment, but also of great wealth and power. So it's hard to say exactly where the line between reality and fantasy lies. But it hasn't stopped people from looking for Atlantis anyway. But then one day, perhaps as punishment for its hubris, the gods caused the island to sink beneath the ocean, and only a few survivors made it out alive. So today, let's take a look at 3 places that could be the real-life Atlantis. One of the most popular candidates for the location of Atlantis is the Greek island of Santorini. According to Greek legend, the island was once home to a powerful civilization, but it was destroyed by a volcanic eruption. And what's interesting here is that there is actually evidence that this really did happen. In fact, there's evidence that this happened around the same time that Plato said that Atlantis was destroyed. This is because Santorini fits Plato's description of Atlantis pretty well. The massive explosion sent ash and debris raining down on the surrounding islands, and the sea level quickly rose as the island was submerged. Maybe he didn't intend for it to be taken literally as a historical account. After all, he was a philosopher, not a historian. So maybe we shouldn't be looking for physical evidence to support the story of Atlantis. Instead, we should be looking for evidence that the people who lived in Santorini had a society that was similar to the one that Plato described. Only Elon and a few of his followers survived, and they fled to a different island, where they founded a new city. Both versions tell the story of a great and powerful civilization that was ultimately destroyed by the gods. And both versions place the island somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea. Sardinia is a beautiful island with a rich history. It's been inhabited by humans for over 2,000 years, and it was once part of the Roman Empire. But it was also home to a number of different civilizations throughout history, including the Nuragic civilization. This new city was named Atlantis, and it eventually grew to become a great and powerful empire. Maybe it was just a figment of Plato's imagination, a way for him to teach a lesson about hubris and the dangers of unchecked power. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll find the real Atlantis and finally put this mystery to rest. Or maybe we'll find something else entirely that's even more mysterious. They built huge stone structures called nuraghi, which were used as defensive towers, religious sites, and even prisons. The nurag also had a sophisticated society with a strong central government and a written language. It's estimated that the eruption killed thousands of people and destroyed the Minoan civilization, which was centered on the island of Crete. Maybe the nurag had a society that was similar to the one that Plato described, and maybe their huge stone structures were the remnants of the Atlanteans' great walls. He said that Atlantis was a large island with a harbor, surrounded by smaller islands, and Santorini is pretty much exactly that. But recent research suggests that it may have actually been located closer to mainland Italy. In fact, some researchers believe that the island was actually located near the Italian island of Sardinia. Some researchers believe that the real Atlantis was actually located in the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Italy. According to legend, the city was founded by Elon, the son of Poseidon and Libya, the daughter of the Titan Atlas. When Poseidon learned that Libya had given birth to 5 pairs of twin boys, he became furious and flooded the island, killing everyone except for Atlan and his descendants. They were known for their art, their architecture, and their seafaring skills. But they also had a pretty advanced society, with a strong central government and a system of writing. So it's easy to see how Plato could have based the Atlanteans on them. The idea that there was once a great and powerful civilization that existed somewhere out there. But then it vanished beneath the waves has captured the human imagination for centuries. So maybe it wasn't quite the same as the destruction of Atlantis that Plato described. But there is evidence that the island was indeed mostly underwater after the eruption. In fact, some historians believe that the rising sea levels actually caused the island of Atlantis to emerge from the ocean. If this is true, then the destruction of Atlantis would have been a direct result of the Santorini eruption. And yet, despite all of the interest in Atlantis over the years, we still don't know for sure if it ever really existed or not. There is no evidence that the people who lived there called themselves Atlanteans, or that they had a king named Atlas. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Come on, guys, Plato was just making stuff up. Of course, he didn't base his story on real people, but I think there's another explanation here. What we do know comes from Plato, who first described the city in 360 BC, according to Plato. Atlantis was located somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, but he wasn't super clear on the exact location. He just said that it was not far from the Strait of Gibraltar, which is the narrow body of water that separates Spain and Morocco. Over the centuries, many people have interpreted this passage literally and concluded that Atlantis must have been somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, near the strait. Now, this is obviously a pretty wild story, which makes sense considering that it comes from the guy who wrote the Republic and gave us the allegory of the cave. And while there have been plenty of false alarms over the years, there are still some intriguing possibilities out there. For our first stop on the trail of Atlantis, let's head over to Greece. In more recent times, though, many people have come to believe that Plato was actually using the Atlantic Ocean as a metaphor, and that Atlantis was actually located in the Mediterranean Sea instead. But perhaps even more compelling than the geography of Santorini is its history. Now, the Santorini eruption isn't thought to be the largest volcanic eruption in history, but it was certainly one of the most destructive. Now, the Minoan civilization was a Bronze Age culture that flourished in the Aegean Sea from around 2700 to 1450 BC now. Some people have pointed out that the Santorini eruption didn't cause the entire island to sink. But while Santorini does seem like a good candidate for the location of Atlantis, there is one problem. Perhaps Plato used the story of Atlantis to teach a lesson about hubris and the dangers of unchecked power. If we do this, then I think we'll find that the story of Atlantis is actually based on the real destruction of the Minoan civilization. For our next stop on the trail of Atlantis, let's head over to Italy. Atlantis and his sons then rebuilt the city, but it was destroyed again when the god Apollo unleashed a deadly plague on the island. Now, I know this story doesn't sound exactly like Plato's version of Atlantis, but the similarities are definitely there. Now, the traditional location for this Atlantean island is the Strait of Sicily, the body of water that separates Sicily from the North African coast. Now, there's not a lot of evidence to support this theory, but the idea is intriguing nonetheless. The Nuragic civilization was an ancient Bronze Age culture that flourished in Sardinia from around 1800 to 2000 BC. Now, none of this is proof that the Nurag were Atlanteans, but it's certainly possible. Of course, there's also the possibility that the island of Atlantis was never a real place at all. When it comes to the mystery of Atlantis, there are more questions than answers. But that hasn't stopped people from searching for the lost city. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe so you can stay updated on all my latest videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.